Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the satellite imagery, way out to the west here, Kamchatka Peninsula, Petropavlovsk, Shimia right there, you can see the next storm down to the south, spreading some cirrus up across the area today there, kind of a trough here through this area, bringing some showers into the western Bering, but that's going to change with this system coming north and northeast, where that'll bring some heavier, more continuous rain and wind in later on tonight and tomorrow. Over the interior, we had a band of clouds, mostly mid and high level stuff here, although there were some areas of flurries and light snow, but nothing too significant here along that band, although about a couple inches of snow falling in Bettles today, and some areas of light snow all through this area, with the clouds generally traveling from south to north around the main low pressure area out here near St. Lawrence Island. High pressure over western Canada, providing cool and dry east and northeast winds, which this morning gusted as high as 50 miles an hour or more at Alderdrock in Lynn Canal here, and Cape Spencer had gusts up to or above 40 miles an hour. Those tending to come down this afternoon, but you can see a lot of sunshine across the across the entire stretch of the area there down into the Queen Charlotte, and then a lot of clouds coming south to north there. Not bringing a lot of rain to Kodiak Island, the heavier rain to the west there and up across Bristol Bay, rain falling today in King Salmon. Dillingham picking up about 0.15 of an inch or so, and that all sliding up to the northwest with some snow reported at Nome and also at Kotzebue, and then some moisture also over St. Lawrence Island with this trough, a break here over the Bering Sea, and then the cirrus ahead of that next storm. Looking at moving on to the chart here, you can see this front really breaking apart here in the eastern areas. There are some possible light snow moving into the eastern Copper River Basin, especially over the mountainous areas there, but just really flurries. A little more continuous area snow going on up over the central north slope and then back to the northwest and off the coast, with the flurries right through this area. Then you get into the heavier moisture ahead of this low south of Kodiak Island, streaming northward, and this whole thing will be gradually shifting eastward over the next 24 hours. And that should bring an increased chance of snow into south central Alaska. High pressure over the Aleutians today, not too bad there, but that's going to get pushed to the east tonight and tomorrow as that next system begins to spread rain and eventually some wind into the western Aleutians. Still got a weak trough here, could bring some light rain or snow showers to the Pribilof Islands and maybe a little bit of shower activity to the Alaska Peninsula. With this moisture, look for the rainfall or rain and snow to increase over southwest Cook Inlet, southern Kenai Peninsula. A little more continuous and heavier rain will shift eastward into Kodiak Island during the night tonight. Some leftover moisture up here over the Alaska Range, and also in that moisture stream heading northwest across the Kuskokwim Valley, where Galena, McGrath, and Nikolai all reported snow today, and still pretty good chances of snow there. St. Lawrence Island up to about the Nome area to the Bering Strait, and also over the north slope. But areas clearing out here, and again, temperatures tonight, like last night, could drop into the mid-30s, both over the north slope and there from Arctic Village down across the Yukon Flats. And wherever the skies are clear, that's where the temperatures will be the coldest. And the southeast coast, look for an increase in the clouds later tonight here. Maybe some flurries showing up along the north coast, but inland areas should be or remain dry, and but definitely kind of an increasing chance of some flurries or lower conditions are showing up along the immediate coastline. And then for tomorrow, that system begins to inch its way eastward there, and actually the whole upper trough will be pushing through. That should bring a pretty good chance of some snow. in across south central Alaska, mixed conditions down along the coast, and then some areas of snow right up across the Tanana Valley into the Yukon, partly the Koyukuk Valley again, the North Slope, and then another continuous batch of light snow here in the west with another trough right through this area, trailing down into the Kilberg Mountains, but looks drier over Bristol Bay tomorrow. That high coming eastward now ahead of that next frontal system, pushing the gale force winds there into the central Aleutians with the rain heavy at times. And it looks like Saturday night and Sunday, as this thing comes in, that's going to push this system off to the east. So there are winter storm watches out for the southeast coast with the cold air that you have, cold dry air over the area now. As this comes in, pretty good chance of whatever moisture starts to fall will be in the form of snow, especially the farther east or north you are there. And Sunday's forecast, I may have a little more green, or there should maybe a little more turquoise here than, or turquoise and pink than green, but definitely a trend will be with the southerly winds ahead of the front, starting out snow, changing over to rain over the southern areas, and then that's a little more uncertain on the timing. So there are the winter storm warnings out starting Saturday evening, and that continuing through the day on Sunday. Back to the west, mostly clear, dry conditions, light winds, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula. Starting out that way, Kodiak Island, but look for some more moisture to come in from the southwest here as that weak ridge axis moves right over the island. A lot of moisture and southerly flow here and southwesterly flow ahead of the front. That's quite a warm front pushing northward with those good southerly winds and quite an area of rainfall as well. Alaska Peninsula over to False Pass, Cold Bay on Alaska, rain possibly heavy at times, spreading northward on those south winds of 25 to 35, some cases gusting close to 50 miles an hour, even stronger winds here in advance of the front there. And that could result in some blowing snow, at least for a short period of time along the Yukon Delta coast. Winds coming up St. Lawrence Island, but the main snow may not arrive there until late in the afternoon Sunday or Sunday evening. Otherwise, just some remaining areas of light snow, mostly right along here from the, I'll say Eagle, back across the Tanana Valley over to Unalakleet. We're probably in Seward Peninsula. Could still see some light snow at times, as well as the Noatak Valley, Kivlina, on up to the western Arctic coastal areas, but dry back to the east. And again, this system bringing pretty good chance the moisture starting out in the form of snow when it arrives tomorrow night and on the day Sunday into Sunday night. And for temperatures down that way today, 17 at Skagway with a 30-degree reading at Elephant Cove. Otherwise, lower 20s to lower 30s with 28 down at Wrangell. 22 in Cordova, same thing in Anchorage, 25 Kenai, 37 in Homer. Right around 0 there for the Copper River Basin, 14 Talkeetna, 0 at Fairbanks, not much different there at Delta with 1 above, Tanana 1 below, and Eagle -7. Cold spot 26 below this afternoon at Arctic Village, and they had the state's low this morning, or one of them, at -35, -8 at Bettle, 7 at Anatuvik, and a 12 at Selawik, 16 Kotzebue, but upper 20s here, both at Buckland and Shishmaref this afternoon. Generally below 0 on the eastern Arctic coast there with -8 at Kaktovik, to 7 degrees at Point Lay. Barrow had 2 above, but up to 23 Cape Lisburne, 28 at Nome. Right around 30 degrees here along the Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island, Savunga, Gamble, up into the mid-30s. Same thing for Macoriac. And let's see, there's a 10-degree reading at McGrath, and otherwise 30s here. Bristol Bay, King Salmon, rain, 37 degrees with upper 30s to lower 40s. One of the warmer locations, 42 at Unalaska, and near 48 on out to the west. Lows tonight, again, 25 to 35 below here over the eastern interior, and you can see the contrast quite vividly here from northeast to southwest. You get it right back up to freezing here along the coastline into St. Lawrence Island, and upper 30s here back across the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Teens and, well, mostly teens for the southeast coast. Southern areas probably be in the mid-20s. And for the highs tomorrow, 20s to lower 30s. Some areas might push up towards 40 degrees like Port Alexander. and upper 20s, lower 30s, south central Alaska. About the same here. It's, well, a little cooler, maybe 30s there along the southwest coast, which is about like today, 40s for the Aleutians, staying cold up to the northeast. Flying weather, IFR, as that upper trough and all the moisture comes eastward, be IFR to start with here for the western Alaska range, and that'll shift east, improve during the afternoon hours with IFR pretty widespread here in North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, right up into the south central Alaska areas. Begin that moving eastward and spreading northeastward up toward the Alaska range. Some more areas of lower conditions back here to the west and the northwest, persisting up there over the Brooks Range, mostly the Brooks Range northward into the North Slope, and some marginal VFR down into Bristol Bay, and then more IFR with that incoming front there toward the Adak and Atka areas, and then back around toward Shemya. And for passes, Anaktuvik, it looks like the IFR will be mostly on the northern entrance, starting out maybe VFR to marginal, then coming down in the afternoon. I think south entrance will stay VFR, and for Adigan, south entrance may be marginal as well as a pass, and then marginal becoming IFR in that north entrance throughout the day. Lake Clark and Merrill starting out IFR and then gradually improving to VFR sometime during the afternoon tomorrow. And rainy, that same trend, starting out with the lowest conditions early in the day and gradually improving throughout the afternoon, although probably won't get better than marginal VFR. And then for windy, or that probably not before tomorrow night or on Sunday. And then windy coming down, starting out good, but IFR anytime during the afternoon hours. Isabel, conditions coming down as well. VFR becoming marginal. Southern entrance could go IFR. And Mentasta, same downward trend there, but not quite as drastic and possibly not as fast. VFR becoming marginal. Tanita IFR and Portage IFR. Chilkoot and White should stay VFR. And the freezing levels at the surface, a little warmer air here as we saw today out over the Bering Sea, and then the southerly winds ahead of that incoming system pushing 48,000 feet in over the central Aleutians, 2,000 feet over the northeast Gulf. And icing threats, light to isolated moderate rime or mixed icing here beginning to show up along the southeast coast, and then areas of extending back to the northwest and getting a lot more hit and miss up here to the northwest. Heavier icing with that deeper moisture layer coming into the central Aleutians there, mostly below 10 to 13,000 feet. And the jet stream showing the Arctic jet here coming down. That's what's giving the dry, chilly weather to the southeast coast both today and tomorrow. But the trough out in this area, that's eventually going to increase the southwest flow tomorrow night and Sunday, and that's why those winter storm warnings or winter storm watches are out. And the high pressure ridge out here to the west, 120 knots from the northwest there, and that whole pattern moving eastward here over the next couple of days. And for the 9,000 foot winds, low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska, northwesterlies here about 30 knots across Kodiak Island, Kamishak Bay into the western Gulf. And then you can see it becoming southwest, but not too bad tomorrow. But this wind will be coming around and pulling the moisture in tomorrow night and Sunday as the whole low pulls eastward. Otherwise, west-southwest at about 20 through a band in the central interior, lighter than the north. The strongest winds out in the Aleutians up to 50 knots across Adak and Atka. Same thing at 9,000 feet, southeasterlies 20 to 50 knots there. Beginning to increase over the eastern Aleutians and the northwesterlies here, Kodiak Island, southern Cook Inlet, and more westerly in the Gulf. Otherwise, westerlies or west-southwest at about 5 to 10. Eastern Arctic coast, or the western coast there, high pressure and northeast winds at about 15, and southerlies here staying pretty brisk but dropping off west of Adak, becoming more easterly. And turbulence looks a little bumpy with those northwest winds, mechanical chop here, or moderate chop, mostly below 4,000 to 6,000 feet. Southern Cook Inlet down into Fognak Island, Kamishak Bay, and probably southern Kodiak Island. And then a more widespread area of the stronger winds with that potent front coming into the central Aleutians, but nothing too severe. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Harry Keeling. And on behalf of Alaska Public Media, and the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. Welcome to Hangar Flying. I hope you were able to tune in last time, because I pointed out that this is the first time I've ever done one by myself without a guest, but I feel so strongly about what I'm going to tell you that I wanted to just speak to you directly. And just in summary, what we were talking about was angle of attack and critical angle of attack. An angle of attack is that angle between the chord line of the wing and the relative wind. Why that's important, I mentioned that the Navy's been using it for 50 years to come aboard a carrier. Why is it important to you as a general aviation pilot? Well, I want to show you that this evening. And the NTSB and the FAA have made it easy to install it, reasonably inexpensive. The units themselves are less than $1,500, probably 6 to 8 hours of work to put them in. But essentially what you have is, as shown here, this blade antenna, or I'm not an antenna, but blade actually fits in one of the inspection holes. On my 185, I installed this in June, and it fits in the rectangular inspection plate just inboard of the wing. And that's it. And it senses the relative pressure on either side of this. In the cockpit, you have this gauge here, which I mounted mine just on the left side of the glare shield so that you can see it coming down final, but it doesn't obstruct your view. So as we mentioned earlier, mentioned last time, angle of attack is different than airspeed. Airspeed is for stalls, for VX, for VY, for best glide. All of that is dependent on a lot of factors. Gross weight, G loading, density altitude. Angle of attack is not. Once you calibrate this on your airplane, it's going to do a lot of amazing things for you. Let me show you. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it on, and this is what you would see when you first apply power. This is a self-test.
AOA test complete.
So, I'm going to step you through, and we're going to look at the gauge, but let me show you what I've got my hand on here. This is an airfoil, or a simulated airfoil. So as I raise the front end of the simulated airfoil, the angle of attack is going to increase. And I'm going to show you what that means, and I'll use my 185 as a reference, but I'll tell you how you can use it. So initially, what we have here is actually cruise flight. So, you know, you're cruising along at 23 squared or whatever it is, you're going to see this green indication, which indicates that you're at cruise. Now, as you increase the angle of attack, you'll see that, and this isn't in chronological sequence. If you were to take off, and let's say you rotate at 58 knots, and you've got 20 degrees of flaps, in like I would have in my 185. 58 knots is the airspeed that you would see if you really needed to get over an obstacle. But then you're going to see VX and VY. And yes, it could be an airspeed, but it also is an angle of attack. Watch. This is actually the sequence that you would see. And that's what VX would look like, which of course is an airspeed, but you would see VX, and then if you relaxed a little bit of the back stick pressure, you would see this as VY. And you could fly that, you know, up to altitude if you wanted to maintain your VY speed. Now, when you come back around in the pattern, you're going to be at cruise, right? You're going to be back here like this. And as you slow up, let's say you're at 100 knots and you slow to 80 knots, coming around the corner, you're going to see this, and then this. And in my airplane, I've got it on 3400 Aeroset amphibs. I like to fly it a little bit fast. So on final, what I would like to see, and this correlates to about 70 to 75 knots. And then I would bring it all the way into touchdown. Very useful. In fact, if you lost your airspeed indicator, which has happened to me in an F-100, you should know about what the power setting is, but you can shoot angle of attack all the way down final. So it's a substitute for airspeed. We've run out of time this evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would ask you to come back next time for one last installment on this. I want to show you how this is going to save your life. And until then, fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, winds Lynn Canal Glacier Bay still north, kind of gusty tomorrow, lighter and more variable here over the central and southern interchannels. Westerlies 15 to 20 knots out along the coast, seas running 7 to 8 feet. And then on Sunday, with the system coming in southwest, actually the front during the mid and afternoon hours having pushed eastward. That's why I've got the gales over the inland waters here, or the inside waters, maybe as high as 40 knots there to the south. Northerly gales here, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, more of a variable to easterly direction over the central areas, and then small craft advisories here out along the coast. Up to 30 knots there on the north coast there from the east, and higher gusts from the northeast. For the Prince William Sound area, northeast 10, pretty light winds tomorrow. South 15, and westerlies 15 down the coastline. Kodiak Island, northwest 20. Could see some higher gusts. Actually, could possibly see gale force gusts during the day tomorrow for a short time. Northwest 20, Shelikof Strait, dropping back to 20 knots for Kamishak Bay. And northerlies at about 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet, with seas running 2 to 3 feet there. And then for Sunday, lighter winds becoming light and variable under ridge of high pressure over Shelikof Strait, and really not much stronger through the Kamishak Bay and Cook Inlet, mostly north at 10 or 5 to 10 knots, especially north of the Forelands. Northeast 15, Prince William Sound, and probably looking at some small craft advisories here for the central coast right down into the Barren Islands, and about 20 knots from the west-northwest there for Kodiak Island on the east side. Bristol Bay, westerlies at 15. Small craft advisories here for the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Northwest 20 on the Pacific side, except from about Chignik up towards Sitkinak. Northwest 25. And then the Sunday outlook, lighter winds there. Southwest 15, what's left of that ridge coming eastward there. Starting out pretty light and variable early Sunday, swinging around to the east and southeast at about 15, maybe up to 20 knots by the late afternoon. Gales here for the Alaska Peninsula, more southerly on the Pacific side. And for the outlook for the forecast tomorrow, 40-knot gales here from the east and southeast, pushing in toward Nikolsky, and on Alaska, small craft advisory southerlies, northeasterlies at 30 for the western Aleutians there from Kiska Island to Shimianatu. And then those swing around to the northwest. Again, a pretty potent front coming across the Aleutians, right across the central Aleutians. Small craft advisories out in advance of that, southerlies to southwest, 25 to 30 knots, but the gales on the back side there in the colder northwest winds. For the Bering Sea on the southwest coast first, 15 to 20 knot west-southwesterlies. Looking at pretty good southwest flow here, 20 to 25 knots, northern Bering Sea up to St. Lawrence Island, Perbeloff south at 20. And those will be stronger on Sunday. Could even have gale force winds for a time late tomorrow night and Sunday for the Perbeloffs. Definitely along the coast, gales southeast 35, easterlies 40 there for the northern Bering Sea. And the winds coming up, 25 knots, could be higher later in the afternoon there for St. Lawrence Island. And for the Arctic coast, tomorrow, northeast or east-northeast, 10 to 15, lightest here on the east side. Easterlies at 20 from the central coast, right on down to Cape Lisburne and Point Hope, and then southeasterlies up to 25 knots there for the areas from Tin City and Kotzebue Sound up to Point Hope. And that area drops off on Sunday, lose a freezing spray, southeast 15 for the forecast there. And easterly still around 20 knots, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, and that marine zone, but then dropping back to northeast at only 10 knots on the west side here. Westerlies 10 knots or 5 to 10 for the central coast, but those tending to increase here as you head east now. Westerlies could reach the brisk wind advisory levels there along the eastern stretch of the coastline, Kaktovik over to Demarcation Point, and possibly even as far back as Prudhoe Bay. Then for tonight, watching this area of moisture that's brought snow to the Kuskokwim Valley today, and then rain and snow over the southwest part of the state. Rain for Kodiak Island tonight, a weak low right in this area, and the upper trough and moisture band will be slipping eastward later tonight. So look for the clouds to increase and the chances of rain and snow for southern Cook Inlet. Have some leftover moisture up here, possibly the Talkeeton is on up the Alaska Range, but that'll be pretty light, fair and cold. Air is dropping into the mid-30s again over the Yukon Flats up to the areas of the North Slope, away from this band of moisture and clouds, which will keep it warmer. Clouds increasing, maybe some flurries showing up, possibly along the coast here of the Panhandle, otherwise staying dry. For the most part, some showers out over the Bering Sea, and there's the next big storm pushing the wind and rain into the Aleutians. Not so much tonight, but tomorrow, the gales and then the northeasterlies on the back side of that turning northwest. And then for, well, tomorrow, this area of snow will be pushing across south central Alaska with a few inches falling in some areas. And that'll extend all the way up into the northeast interior. And then for Sunday, that'll bring a lot of moisture and the winter storm watches.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.